My name is Pat Paccassi. We are doing a recording here in Roseau in Dominica. We are at the Baha'i National Center. And one of the thing that I would like to begin talking about is first the overall development of the faith in the Leeward, Windward and Virgin Islands. The reason I would even presume to talk about this kind of development is that our family has been in the Caribbean for 30 years. And we did start in the north, where the first regional assembly was together. The faith really did not develop in these islands until the mid-50s. South America and Central America was very well taken care of with some of the bigger, like Puerto Rico and Dominican Republic. They had very well established communities, but these smaller islands were left until the 10-year World Crusade, when the Guardian made a call. And it was at that time, of course, that the special title of Knights of Baha'u'llah was given to the people who would come to the Virgin Territories. And so these small islands and these areas were the ones in which it came. And the ones like Esther Evans, for instance, Knight of Baha'u'llah for the Leeward Islands, for the Windward Islands, was at a convention, and national convention, where Rahia Khanum made the appeal. And she says, Esther says, I could still see that. Now you old guys, she says, you don't have anything to do. She said, you've got a little money. She said, you just get out there and do it. And Esther says, and she was talking right to me. So she got up and she got out, and that's what she did. Now, I don't know how many Knights of Baha'u'llah died at their post. I'll bet there wasn't a whole lot of them, and Esther was one of them, okay? So she then opened up the bottom half of this territory. The top half was opened up by the Daytons. They went to the Virgin Islands. They were joined there very quickly, within a year or so, by the Harmers, Marjorie and Ellerton Harmer. And they brought their adopted children with them. And they began to teach and work in the islands like they had done at home. It was sort of a one-to-one, get to know people, try to dispel the idea that this was some really strange white people's religion. And you always got into the the crossing of the cultures, even in St. Thomas, because the Harmers, where they came from, they used to like to have barbecues and hot dog roasts. So they would go out in the back and build a bonfire and roast the stuff, so the word spread around the island that the Baha'is were fire worshippers. Okay, so you have to get past that kind of stuff. Okay, so this period then lasted for about 10 years, with just a few travel teachers coming down into the area. And then in the 60s, mid-60s, there were a few local spiritual assemblies, and the House of Justice, of course, formed in 1963. And the jurisdiction then of these islands went over from being spread out like to Brazil and South America, and to these really places that were inaccessible to where we are, to the United States. So this, of course, made it much easier for travel teachers and pioneers to come down. So by 1966, the House of Justice had called then for the formation of this regional National Assembly, Leeward, Windward, and okay? And it was it was formed on 5 local spiritual assemblies. Now, when you think about that is really incredible, because you've got a territory now that is like 600 miles, okay, from St. Thomas in the north to Grenada in the south. And what you have here is just this enormous bodies of water and these little dots of land all the way through, okay? So the administration of the islands was really difficult. I was not on the first National Assembly. I was elected on a by-election on the second National Assembly, and remained for the next, well, except for 1 or 2 years, 19 years serving on the National Assemblies. So what we really found was that in this territory, you had at least 4 major languages and 4 major currencies that you were trying to deal with as well. So it made it extremely difficult. After John Desire from Haiti, who had pioneered to the French islands, left, what we were faced with was no way to communicate with the French islands at all. No one on the National Assembly spoke French, and no one in the islands spoke English. So they would write letters up to the National Assembly. We'd have to get them translated. Then we would and a couple of them we had to send to New York because St. Thomas wasn't big on French-speaking people either. Send them up there, get them translated, send them back, give our answers, send them back, translated back into French again, and then send them down. All one could hope is that they didn't have a serious emergency that they had to deal with. Okay. The meetings themselves were very difficult because we had this long, journey that the members had to take. There were members in the island from Grenada to St. Lucia, and always one or two in the middle islands, and then some in St. Thomas. So what you had are these long, expensive airplane rides. Okay. And oh, one more minute? Okay. And with this idea of the development, with this travel, the members would have to try to take travel teaching trips along the way. And the NSA had to pay for all of their fares because there was no way to do it. Okay, I mean, the people were just, most of the pioneers and the local people were just hanging on by their, just barely making a living. And there was no way that they could handle those airfares. Okay, meet once a month. So eventually what they tried to do was to meet on different islands. And while this didn't help the airfare any, at least we were able to be aware of and have more of a connection with the friends, because they didn't know what administration was. They didn't get to see the people. So once they began to see the people, they could get this connection of at least somebody is doing something somewhere. All right. The teaching then continued in this manner now from '67 until in the early 70s, 1970, because in the United States, what they were doing, matter of fact, before that, in the area, one of the real, to me, was interesting, that at the National Assembly meetings in St. Thomas, we could sit down and draw up a list of every active believer in the Leeward, Windward, and Virgin Islands and not miss anybody, okay? My daughter, at that one time, was the only one of the 10 registered youth in the Caribbean. So that gives you, a picture of the growth and the membership. However, in the 70s that changed, because in the late 60s in the United States they started mass teaching, and whoo boy, I mean, everybody was so excited. They say this is the time we're going to have mass conversion, and everybody just got caught up in this fever, as we did. So at the National Assembly meeting, I can remember that meeting, we talked about doing it, okay? And I thought, boy, that sounded like great stuff, because we were coming along, but it was slow and it was sluggy, and you didn't know how to do this. We were running teacher training institutes and whatever we could do. But then we decided, okay, let's go for this thing. Let's really try to do it, okay? There was, we had the enthusiasm, we had the willingness, and we had $2.63 in the National Treasury. Okay? That 2 out of 3 is not bad, right? So we decided to do this, and they asked me to coordinate. I went down first to Nevis in the Leeward Islands, and I knew it was going to be a big team. And I couldn't find facilities or places for them to stay. So we switched it over to Barbados. Well, the history then of the teaching and the growth in the islands changed forever, okay? You hear this phrase that they say, well, history will show whether it was right or not. In this case, I don't think history is going to show whether it was right or not, okay? Because no matter who you talk to, you see different points of view, all right? And many of the local people really felt resistant to this because they felt that, that our island is different, we need a slow approach to it. So there was always this conflict between, actually, most of the conflict was through pioneers and from the board members and some of the councilors who wanted this thing to move forward because the House of Justice said, okay? Now, looking back, over those old messages that came when the mass teaching started. The House of Justice did say do it, but they also warned us over and over again that these twin processes of teaching and consolidation must go hand in hand, okay? So we learned how to do the teaching real good, but we never had the resources to do the consolidation. And we tried. I mean, the history will show we did try. We just simply, we didn't have the time, we didn't have the money, we didn't have the energy. There was just no way we could take care of all the stuff we had just opened up, you know? Anyhow, that's the way it went, and teaching then at that time changed completely forever, okay? The growth of the faith, however, on the other hand, was such that we had the basis that we could begin now to form different National Assemblies. So by 1972, the North separated from the South, and the Windward Islands was here and Leeward and Virgin's there, okay? Which made the administration of the faith infinitely easier, okay? The growth then continued, and I've sort of lost track of what happened up above because Frank and I volunteered to move down into Barbados to help with this can of worms we had just opened up because we felt a real responsibility to help where there was so many believers, okay? By 1981, the growth then had gotten to the point where the House of Justice said, now change, Barbados can be on its own and Windward Islands can be on its own. And in the North, I think that the Leeward and the Virgins began to change there and the French Antilles came into its own, okay? So in one way, what we had now was with not solid functioning administrative units, but we had the basis to form these independent National Assemblies who can begin to work on their own problems, okay? Their own expansion, their own consolidation, okay? This is what they had to do, okay? So this is the stage I think that we're at now. The Guardian had said that wherever there was an independent country, there would be a National Assembly. And in the Caribbean, we have done that. We are now at that point. So perhaps in that way, history will show that this was a step that went along, okay?